So about that doc. Just a while after posting a new mix, a doc on GoMotion was released on Twitter by the Tickler with comments disabled and warnings for things. I figured I'd go over the sparknotes to get people in the door because it's a pretty big doc. If you want the full thing, it's linked in the description along with its wheat. I'm going to refer to the victim as T because I don't feel like saying the Tickler several dozen times, and Gomo as Gomo because it's Gomo. To start, the two met in March 2020, with T being aged 15 and Gomo 18. Astonishingly, it doesn't take long for shit to go off the rails, because in the coming weeks, Gomo would vent to them in and out of VC. Topics would vary, but it was often over gender dysphoria, which would follow up into some less savory conversation. Surprisingly, T wasn't a fan until after meeting Gomo, but regardless of their work, T wanted to offer a shoulder to lean on, quote, even though it would leave me pretty emotionally drained. But the good times outweighed the bad times, right? But it gets worse. Firstly, keep Gomo mentioning that she's jealous of T in the back of your mind. It will come up later in the post-expose quiz. Not even a week after meeting T, Gomo discusses, trigger warning, her tendency to self-harm, and goes into excruciating detail about it. So much so that I'm too uncomfortable to show it on screen. Research at your own risk. Being as distressing as it is, Gomo's self-destructive tendencies are a hook-end for T to stick around despite everything that's about to come crashing in down the line. The plain reasoning is that as the two get closer, the harder it is for T to leave because their connection literally becomes a matter of life and death. In other words, T can't just leave, out of risk of Gomo harming herself. All this is also skipping the fact that Gomo chose, of all people to attach to, a 15-year-old girl. The venting continues to ramp up from gender dysphoria to about not having a vagina, with Gomo still being jealous of T sprinkled in, to the point of Gomo admitting that she wishes she could literally be T. Alongside this, Gomo starts calling T her sister, which she will continue to do throughout the entire relationship. Again, 15. T is 15, and only known Gomo for like a week. Already the stakes are high, and Gomo is latching onto them like a gigaton magnet. There are also a lot of incidents described of Gomo confessing to some weird shit she did in the past, like finding Dako's address, but the takeaway in this section is Gomo's tendency to stalk. And stalk she did, as she starts to become awfully curious about T's boyfriend, who sadly doesn't have a funny nickname in this doc. She goes through his DeviantArt, sends him a message on Discord, and mentions offhandedly that for said message she had something stupid in mind. There's a lot of this social stalking, alongside Gomo wishing she had a crush, and don't worry, she gets one a year later, for 3 whole days. And before you ask, yes, they were underage. The general consensus from others in Gomo and T's sphere is that, and pardon my slang, Gomo was a sad little bean, while also at the same time trigger-friendly with slurs and VC, so... Also being transphobic, but... which is... that's... Gomo, that's friendly fire. What the fuck are you doing? This is also the part in the document where we get to this part, which you should read instead of me, because I don't want to say this out loud. July 2021, Gomo admits this to some unknown individual, also mentioning that she's had this happen with multiple of her friends. She eventually, not really, sort of admits this to T and proceeds to go back to Annan after 2 months of silence to vent about it again. Finally, come April, Gomo throws up her hands and admits she's been imagining herself as T while punching the clown, who at the time would be 16, and Gomo 19. If you thought we were out, we're not. It's still getting worse. But for now, I'm going to put a little space in the script to take a break and kind of digest everything up to this point. So far, the doc claims that Gomo's been talking with this girl she met at 15 years old, Gomo being 18 at the time, became extremely clingy of said child to the point of stalking her BF, turned T into her therapist for gender dysphoria and self-harm. She did that happened. She said that she talked about that. She talked about that with a child. Proceeded to get very in-depth about dysphoria, including genitalia, and I didn't mention, but Gomo's transition itself, which is cool, I guess. Eventually admits to fantasizing about being T and getting off to it. On the bright side, I don't see how this could get any worse. So same day of the admission, visitation plans are brewing, and they turn out surprisingly normal. They go hiking. Gomo complains about her legs aching during the hike, which is same. Personally, I'm so unfit that the pacer test could probably kill me. They get home alone. Gomo admits that her legs weren't aching because of the hike, but because she had been stretching them intentionally to push blood from her wing back to her legs. And then she does this thing, and they kiss. Also, side note, I'm assuming they're dating at this point. It's mentioned once in the doc, but we don't really get the exact starting date of this relationship. For Gomo, though, I can only assume it was when they met. Visits after this point only got more deranged, citing the time Gomo abandoned her flight to continue living with T after, 2 months of already doing that. From there, the doc mostly covers Gomo being extremely possessive of T. All I really have to share from this section is this image and this conversation about Gomo groping T in public. By the ass crack of 2025, T finally taps out. After gradually prying herself from playing therapist and a lot of pushing and shoving, the two break up. As T tries to get some space, Gomo continues to follow them around until getting hit with a hard block across all platforms. She even calls T's mom, which is immediately shut down. Based mom? Ha! Can't be me. Gomo takes it about as well as foreshadowed, but manages to pull through. Finally, all is quiet until May, when we wrap back around to witness testimony, where Gomo says some really transphobic things to someone T literally just met. Gomo continues this on May, which, out of context, is extremely unhinged. But from this engagement, T gleams Gomo is watching her like a hawk, and if that's the case, Godspeed, miss. I hope this doc convinces Gomo to fucking stop. I don't have a conclusion written for this video, but I do have to say, Godspeed to T. Clearly, they're going through a lot right now, and this was really a big spur of the moment thing, right? I don't really just go up on a mic and spit my shit, right? But I feel for it. I've dealt with stalker shit before, and it sucks. That's really all I have to say. It sucks, and I hope the best for T. And I hope Gomo shuts the fuck up, because there is talks, right? I've seen little bits and pieces of talks of Gomo writing like a counter doc before this, and I just gotta ask, what the fuck are you gonna do? What are you gonna say that's gonna relieve you of all of this? Saying that this reveals you in a sort of bad light is an understatement. This is really, really fucking bad. Maybe don't fucking groom kids. That's my best advice. Don't groom kids. Anyway, thank you for watching my shit video. I hope that this informs people of stuff or whatever. And I hope things get better for T. That's all I gotta say. Yeah. Bye. Also, this goes without saying, but don't use any of this shit to, be transphobic. You dick.